The alert came through at the worst possible time. Ambassador Velthus was in the middle of his meditation cycle when the communication device on his wrist began flashing urgent red. He opened his 3 eyes slowly, annoyed at the interruption. In his 400 years of diplomatic service, very few things qualified as truly urgent. "What is it?" he asked, his voice carrying the musical quality of his Calarian species. "Sir, we have detected a new species," the voice on the other end said quickly. "They have achieved faster than light travel. The Council has authorized immediate first contact." Velthus felt his irritation fade, replaced by the familiar excitement that came with meeting a new civilization. This would be his 24th first contact mission. He had a perfect record. Every species he had encountered had joined the Galactic Council peacefully and gratefully. "Prepare the harmonious greeting," he said, already moving toward his quarters to dress in his formal diplomatic robes. "I will be there within the hour." The ship was one of the Council's finest. It stretched nearly 2 kilometers long, covered in panels that could display any message in any language. The hull itself could shift colors to convey emotion and intent, according to the customs of whoever they encountered. It was designed for one purpose: to make newcomers feel welcome. Velthus stood on the bridge, surrounded by his team of specialists. There were linguists, cultural experts, scientists, and even a few military advisors, though they were rarely needed. In 50,000 years of recorded galactic history, first contact had always gone smoothly. It was one of the few universal constants. "Show me what we know about them," Velthus said. The main screen lit up with images of a small blue and green planet. "They call themselves humans," explained researcher Kiv, a small gray being with enormous black eyes. "They come from a planet they name Earth, single-species dominance of their world. They have recently developed crude faster-than-light engines and have begun establishing colonies on nearby worlds." "How many colonies?" Velthus asked. "We have detected 5 so far, but there may be more. Their expansion rate is quite rapid for a newly emerged species." Velthus nodded. Rapid expansion was common. Most species, once they discovered FTL travel, rushed to claim as many worlds as possible before making contact with the galactic community. It was a kind of cosmic land grab, and the Council understood it well. "Where are they now?" "We have intercepted one of their colony ships near the star system they call Proxima Centauri. It is heading toward a planet suitable for their biology." "Excellent. Take us there. Prepare the standard first contact package." The journey took only a few hours. The harmonious greeting dropped out of FTL space directly in the path of the human vessel. Velthus watched the screens as the human ship came into view. It was ugly by galactic standards, all hard angles and exposed machinery. It looked like it had been built by someone who cared only about function and nothing about form. "Begin transmission," Velthus ordered. The communications officer nodded. Instantly, the harmonious greeting began broadcasting in every frequency, using 10,000 different languages from across the galaxy. The messages were simple: greetings, peace, friendship, welcome to the galactic community. The hull of the ship shifted through colors meant to convey joy and warmth, mathematical sequences that proved intelligence, and peaceful intent scrolled across every display. They waited. The human ship continued on its course without changing speed or direction. "Perhaps they need time to process the information," suggested Kiv. "Their technology is primitive. They may not have proper translation equipment." "Transmit the galactic accord," Velthus said. "Send it in their own languages." "We intercepted their broadcasts. We know they use several primary languages, but one called English seems dominant." The communications officer worked quickly. Within minutes, the entire galactic accord, the treaty that every species signed upon joining the Council, was transmitted directly to the human vessel in perfect English, Mandarin, Spanish, Arabic, and a dozen other human languages. They waited again. The human ship altered its course slightly, moving around the harmonious greeting. It continued toward its destination. Velthus felt a strange sensation in his chest. It was unfamiliar. After a moment, he recognized it as confusion. "Did they receive our transmission?" he asked. "Yes, sir. All channels show successful delivery. They definitely received everything we sent." "Then why are they not responding?" No one had an answer. "Follow them," Velthus ordered. "Perhaps they need to see our peaceful intentions through action. We will escort them to their destination and try again." The harmonious greeting adjusted course and began following the human colony ship. They maintained a respectful distance, continuing to broadcast messages of peace and friendship. They had followed for less than an hour when the sensors began screaming warnings. 3 ships just appeared out of FTL, the sensor officer shouted. They are moving to intercept us. Veltha stared at the screen. 3 human warships, each about half the size of the harmonious greeting, had positioned themselves between his vessel and the colony ship. They were not broadcasting any messages. They were not making any threatening moves. They were simply there, silent and waiting. This is Ambassador Velthus of the Galactic Council, he broadcast on all frequencies. We come in peace. We mean no harm to your colony ship. We only wish to establish diplomatic relations. The human warships did not respond, but they did move, creating a perfect defensive formation around the colony ship. Sir, the colony ship and all 3 warships are preparing to jump to FTL, the sensor officer said. Hail them again, Velthus demanded. Tell them we must speak. Tell them it is a matter of great importance for their entire species. The communications officer sent the message. For a brief moment, Velthus thought he saw one of the human warships adjust its position slightly, as if acknowledging the transmission. Then all 4 human vessels jumped to FTL and vanished. The bridge of the harmonious greeting fell silent. Velthus stood motionless, trying to understand what had just happened. In his 400 years, in 23 successful first contacts, nothing like this had ever occurred. They ignored us, Kiv said quietly, speaking what everyone was thinking. That is not possible, Velthus replied. All species seek contact with the galactic community. It is a universal constant. They must have misunderstood our intentions. Sir, with respect, they received our messages perfectly. They understood us. They chose not to respond. Velthus turned to look at the small researcher. Then why? Why would they refuse first contact? Kiv had no answer. The report to the High Council was the most difficult communication Velthus had ever composed. He tried to explain what had happened in a way that made sense, but even as he recorded his words, he knew how impossible they sounded. High Counselor Jextar, an ancient insectoid being who had led the Council for 3,000 years, listened to the entire report without interruption. When Velthus finished, there was a long silence. Are you telling me, Jextar said slowly, that a newly emerged species has refused first contact with the Galactic Council? Yes, High Counselor. This has never happened before. I am aware, High Counselor. Another long silence followed. Velthus could hear the clicking of Jextar's mandibles, a sign the old counselor was deeply troubled. Try again, Jextar finally said. Find another human vessel. Perhaps this was an isolated incident. Perhaps these particular humans were acting without proper authority from their government. Yes, High Counselor. But Velthus suspected, deep in his core, that it would not be that simple. Something about the precision of the human response. The way those warships had appeared exactly when needed. The complete silence from all human vessels. It all suggested careful coordination and deliberate choice. The humans knew the Council was trying to make contact, and they had chosen purposefully and completely to ignore them. That thought frightened Velthus more than he wanted to admit. The second attempt happened 3 weeks later, near a human mining operation in the asteroid belt of a system they called Tau Ceti. The Council sent a smaller, less imposing vessel this time, thinking perhaps the harmonious greeting had seemed too large and intimidating. The human miners saw them coming from a great distance. By the time the Council ship arrived, the mining platforms had been abandoned and 4 human defense ships were waiting. Once again, there was no communication. Once again, the humans simply positioned themselves as a barrier and waited for the Council ship to leave. The third attempt was near a human research station. The fourth was at a colonial world. The 5th, 6th, and 7th attempts all ended the same way. Silence, defense ships, departure. By the 10th attempt, panic was beginning to spread through the Council chambers. Velthus attended every high-level meeting, watching as the most powerful beings in the galaxy struggled to understand what was happening. The Quillarians argued for patience and understanding. The militant Kroth, a species of massive armored warriors, demanded a show of force. The sentients, machine intelligences that spoke only in mathematics and logic, calculated probability matrices that all pointed toward eventual conflict. They are mocking us, growled war leader Krath, the Croth representative. His voice rumbled like falling rocks. They are barely out of their own star system and they dare to ignore the council? We should teach them the price of disrespect. Violence is not the answer, Velta said calmly, though he felt anything but calm. We do not even understand why they refuse contact. How can we respond appropriately when we lack basic information? What is there to understand? Krath demanded. They refuse the council's authority. That is enough. High Counselor Jextar raised one of his primary limbs, calling for silence. The ancient insectoid had been quiet through most of the debate, but now all eyes turned to him. Ambassador Velthas is correct, Jextar said. We lack information. Before we can make any decision, we must understand these humans better. What do we know about them? An analyst named Kress stepped forward. She was a Talnari, a species known for their intelligence-gathering abilities. Her forearms carried multiple data tablets. We have been monitoring human communications for the past 6 months, Kress said. What we have learned is disturbing. The humans have established colonies on 40 worlds. 40 worlds in just 20 standard years since they achieved FTL travel. Murmurs of shock rippled through the chamber. Most species took centuries to establish that many colonies. How is that possible? Someone asked. They reproduce quickly and they work constantly, Kress explained. They require very little rest compared to most species. They also show remarkable adaptability. They have colonized worlds with widely different environments, from frozen ice planets to desert worlds to jungle planets. They simply adapt their technology and themselves to whatever conditions they find. What about their military capabilities? Krath asked, significant and growing rapidly. Every colony has defense platforms. Every civilian ship can apparently be converted to military use within hours. They have multiple ship classes designed specifically for combat. Their weapons technology is crude by our standards, but effective. They favor kinetic weapons, missiles, and something they call nuclear warheads. Several council members made sounds of disgust. Nuclear weapons were considered barbaric by galactic standards, a primitive and dirty form of warfare. Do they have artificial intelligence? Asked a sentient representative. Kress hesitated. Yes, extensive AI systems. They are integrated into every aspect of human technology. The chamber erupted. AI was strictly forbidden under galactic law. Thousands of years ago, the Council had fought a devastating war against rogue artificial intelligences. The laws against AI creation were among the oldest and most sacred rules of the Galactic Accord. They violate the core laws before even joining the Council, Jextar said quietly. This is worse than we thought. There is more, Kress continued once the noise died down. We have intercepted human communications. They never mention the Council, not once. In all our monitoring, we have found no discussions about us, no debates about whether to make contact, nothing. It is as if we do not exist to them. That cannot be, Veltha said. They know we are trying to reach them. Those defense ships did not appear by accident. They are clearly aware of our presence. I did not say they are unaware of us, Kress replied. I said they do not discuss us. There is a difference. They know we exist, but they choose not to acknowledge that knowledge in their communications. Why would they do that? Velthas asked. Kress spread her forearms in a gesture of uncertainty. That is what we need to discover. The debate continued for hours. Some council members wanted to declare humans a threat and authorize military action. Others argued for continued peaceful attempts at contact. The sentients suggested a blockade, preventing human expansion until they agreed to negotiate. Finally, Velthas proposed something different. If they will not come to us, then we must go to them, he said. Not in ships that they can see and avoid. We must infiltrate their colonies. We must walk among them and learn why they refuse to parley. You want to spy on them? Krath asked with disgust. The Council does not engage in espionage against species we are trying to welcome. We have never needed to before, Velthas replied. But we have also never encountered a species like this. Extraordinary circumstances require extraordinary measures. Jextar was silent for a long time, his mandibles clicking slowly. Finally he spoke. The Council will authorize a covert observation mission. Ambassador Velthas, you will lead it. Select your team carefully. You will go to a human world. Observe their society and discover why they refuse contact. You will not interfere with their civilization. You will simply watch and learn. Yes, High Counselor, Velthas said, bowing. And Ambassador, Jextar added, be careful. We are entering unknown territory. For 50,000 years, the pattern has been the same. First contact, negotiation, integration into the council. The humans have broken that pattern. We do not know what else they might be capable of. Velthus assembled his team over the next week. He chose Cress for her intelligence skills. He brought Kiv for his scientific knowledge. He included a Talnari biotechnology expert named Vess, who could create disguises that would allow them to walk among humans undetected. And despite his personal misgivings, he brought a Kroth warrior named Mac for protection. "Where will we go?" Kiv asked as they reviewed the mission parameters. "A colony world called New Hebron," Velthus replied. "It is one of their older colonies established nearly 15 years ago. It has a population of 2 million humans, large enough that we can move unnoticed, but small enough that it might be easier to gather information. The disguises will be perfect," Vess assured them. "I have been studying human biology. I can make you appear completely human, at least externally. You will need to be careful about your behavior, but physically you will be indistinguishable from them." "How long will the transformation take?" Mac asked. The warrior seemed unhappy about the entire mission, but he followed orders. 3 days for the full process. It will be uncomfortable but reversible. The transformation was more than uncomfortable. It was agonizing. Velthus felt his body change, bones shifting, skin texture altering, even his perceptions changing as his 3 eyes merged into 2 human eyes. When it was over, he looked in a mirror and saw a tall human male with dark hair staring back at him. It was deeply disturbing. The others underwent similar transformations. Cress became a human female with red hair. Kiv became a short human male with pale skin. Mac became a large, muscular human male who looked like he could break most things with his bare hands. Vess remained on the ship, monitoring them and ready to assist if needed. They took a small, unmarked shuttle down to New Hebron. The planet was beautiful, with vast oceans and green continents. The main settlement was a city of gleaming towers and bustling streets. It looked prosperous and well organized. "Remember," Velthus said as they prepared to exit the shuttle, "we are here only to observe and learn. Do not reveal who you are. Do not interfere with their society. We are ghosts." They stepped out into the human city, and Velthus felt the weight of countless questions pressing down on him. Somewhere in this place was the answer to why humans refused to parley with the galaxy. He intended to find it. The first thing Velthus noticed about humans was that they moved with purpose. Every person on the street seemed to have somewhere important to be. They walked quickly, talked quickly, even ate quickly. It was exhausting just watching them. The second thing he noticed was that they were loud. Human cities were filled with noise. Vehicles, construction, conversations, music, advertisements, everything produced sound. His human ears, far less sensitive than his natural Quillarian hearing, could barely process it all. "They are so energetic," Kiv whispered as they walked down a main street. "Do they ever rest?" "There." Cress pointed to a large building with official-looking architecture. "That is a government building according to the signs. If we can access their records, we might learn what we need." "How do we get inside?" Mac rumbled. "We have no credentials, no authorization," Cress smiled. "Leave that to me." She approached the building confidently and struck up a conversation with a human guard at the entrance. Velthus watched in amazement as she laughed and joked with the human, and within minutes, she had convinced him that they were visiting researchers from another colony who had lost their identification cards. "System's been having problems all week," the guard said sympathetically. "Go on in. Just check in with the main desk." They were inside. The building was full of busy humans rushing between offices. No one paid any attention to 4 strangers wandering the halls. Cress led them to a records room where rows of computer terminals stood ready for use. "Can you access their systems?" Velthus asked. "Already doing it," Cress replied, her fingers moving across the keyboard with practiced ease. "Their security is adequate but not exceptional. I am searching for any mentions of the Galactic Council or First Contact protocols." They waited tensely while Cress worked. Minutes passed. Then she froze, staring at the screen. "What is it?" Velthus asked. "I found something," she said quietly. "You need to see this." They crowded around the terminal. The screen showed a government document dated 18 months ago. The title read, "Official Response to Galactic Council Contact Attempts." Velthus felt his human heart beating faster. They know. They have always known. Cress scrolled through the document. It was extensive, running to hundreds of pages. It contained detailed analysis of every council transmission, translations of the Galactic Accord, historical research into council practices, and most shocking of all, a unanimous vote by Earth's united government. The vote was simple and direct. Refuse all contact with the Galactic Council. But why? Kiv asked, reading over their shoulders. Why would they refuse? Cress continued scrolling until she found a section labeled Reasoning and Justification. She began reading aloud. After extensive analysis of the Galactic Council's proposed treaty, known as the Galactic Accord, the Security Committee has identified numerous clauses that would severely restrict human sovereignty and independence. These clauses include mandatory restrictions on military development, population control measures, economic integration under Council authority, and most concerning, the establishment of the Galactic Council as the supreme governing authority over all member species. Velthus felt something cold settle in his stomach. He had presented the Galactic Accord hundreds of times to dozens of species. He had always described it as a treaty of mutual cooperation and benefit. He had never thought about how those same words might sound to a species that valued independence above all else. Cress continued reading. The committee has reviewed the historical record of council member species. In 50,000 years of recorded history, not one member species has ever successfully challenged council authority or withdrawn from the accord. Member species are prosperous and safe, but they also show remarkable stagnation in technological and cultural development. Innovation is managed, expansion is controlled. While this system provides stability, it does so at the cost of genuine independence. They think we are conquerors, Mac said, his voice showing rare emotion. They see the Council as an empire that offers protection in exchange for submission. That is not true, Velthus protested. The Council offers partnership, not subjugation. Does it? Cress asked quietly. When was the last time a member species developed a new technology that the Council did not already possess? When was the last time a member species expanded beyond the limits the Council set for them? When was the last time a member species told the Council no and faced no consequences? Velthus had no answer. He had never thought about these questions before. The Council's system had been in place for so long that it seemed like the natural order of things. Cress scrolled down further and found the final decision statement. She read it aloud. Therefore, the United Earth Government has unanimously decided to refuse all contact with the Galactic Council. We will not sign the Galactic Accord. We will not submit to Council authority. We will continue our expansion and development as a free and independent species. We will prepare for the day when the Council decides that our compliance is no longer optional and becomes mandatory. We choose to remain silent because words create obligations. Silence preserves freedom. Better to die free than live on our knees. The records room fell silent. Velthus felt the weight of those words pressing down on him. Humanity had not refused contact out of ignorance or fear. They had refused because they understood perfectly. They had looked at the galaxy's political structure and made a conscious choice to reject it. They are preparing for war with us, Mac said. That last line makes it clear. They expect us to eventually force them to join. Are they wrong? Kiv asked softly. What happens if a species refuses to join the Council? What happens if they expand and grow and become powerful without Council oversight? That has never happened, Velthus said. Exactly, Kiv replied. Which means either every species has willingly joined, or the Council has not allowed refusal to be an option. Which is it, Ambassador? Velthus thought back through his long career. He had always assumed every species joined willingly because the benefits were so obvious. But now he wondered, had there ever been species that refused? If so, what had happened to them? We need to report this to the High Council immediately, Cress said. Wait, Velthus replied. There is more we should learn. If they are preparing for war, we need to understand their capabilities. They spent the next 3 days carefully moving through New Hebron, gathering information. What they discovered was troubling. Every human colony had extensive defense networks, orbital platforms, surface batteries, underground bunkers, all connected by AI systems that could coordinate defensive actions in milliseconds. Every civilian ship could deploy weapons within hours using modular systems. Every colony was designed to function independently if cut off from other human worlds. They also discovered something else. Humans were not naive about war. Their entire history was filled with warfare. They had fought each other for thousands of years before finally uniting. They understood strategy, logistics, and sacrifice in ways that most council species had forgotten. On their 4th day in New Hebron, everything changed. Vel'Thas was walking down a street when a human man fell into step beside him. The man was middle-aged with gray hair and calm eyes. He wore a simple business suit. "Good morning, Ambassador Vel'Thas," the man said quietly. Vel'Thas froze. His hand instinctively moved toward a weapon he no longer carried. "Do not be alarmed," the man continued. "We have known you were here since your shuttle landed. We have been watching you and your team closely." "How did you know who I am?" Vel'Thas asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Your disguises are excellent," the man admitted. "But you move wrong. You look at things wrong. You react to sounds and sights in ways that no human would. We have been monitoring you constantly. My name is Governor Marcus Webb. I am the Chief Administrator of New Hebron. I think it is time we had a conversation." Vel'Thas saw Kress, Kiv, and Mak being approached by other humans. None of them looked threatening, but it was clear they were no longer operating in secret. "Where are you taking us?" Vel'Thas asked. "Nowhere dangerous," Webb replied. "Simply to my office. You came here looking for answers. I think it is time we gave them to you directly." Webb's office was in the government building they had infiltrated days before. It was a comfortable space with large windows overlooking the city. Webb offered them seats and even provided beverages, though Vel'Thas was too nervous to drink anything. "You have been reading our files," Webb said, "so you know that we understand what the Council wants from us. You know why we have refused contact." "Yes," Vel'Thas admitted, "but surely you must understand that you cannot stand against the entire galaxy. The Council has 100,000 member worlds. You have 40. If it comes to conflict, you cannot win." Webb smiled sadly. "You are probably right, Ambassador. But that does not mean we will surrender without that conflict. Let me ask you something. How many Council species would actually fight? How many have maintained real military capabilities? How many remember what war actually means?" Vel'Thas had no answer. Most Council species had not fought a real war in thousands of years. "We have a message for the Council," Webb continued. "Since you are here, you can deliver it directly." Governor Webb stood and walked to his window, looking out over the city of New Hebron. Vel'Thas and his team sat in tense silence, waiting for the message they would have to carry back to the Council. "Humanity wants peace," Webb said finally. "We genuinely do. We have fought ourselves for thousands of years and we have learned how terrible war can be. But we also learned something else from all that fighting. We learned that some things are worth dying for." He turned back to face them. "Here are our terms. We request mutual recognition of sovereignty. The United Colonies of Humanity and the Galactic Council will recognize each other as independent governing bodies. We want diplomatic relations, but as equals, not as subjects. We want trade agreements, cultural exchanges, scientific cooperation, all the benefits of galactic civilization, but without surrendering our right to govern ourselves." "The Council will never accept that," Vel'Thas said quietly. "The entire system is built on the Galactic Accord. If we allow one species to refuse it, others will follow. The order that has maintained peace for 50,000 years will collapse." "Then perhaps that order needs to collapse," Webb replied calmly. "An order built on mandatory compliance is not peace, Ambassador. It is control. There is a difference. And if the Council refuses your terms," Kress asked, "then we ask that you leave us alone. We will stay in our space. You stay in yours. We will not seek conflict. And if the Council cannot accept that either," Mak rumbled. Webb's expression hardened. "Then the Council will be making a choice to initiate hostilities against a species that only wants independence. We will defend ourselves. We will make it costly. We will make it bloody. And we will make sure that every species in the galaxy knows that the Council attacked us for refusing to surrender our freedom." "You would make the Council appear as aggressors," Vel'Thas said, understanding dawning. "You would turn galactic opinion against us." "We would tell the truth," Webb corrected. "The Council has many member species. How many of them truly understand what they agreed to when they signed the Galactic Accord? How many would start asking questions if they saw another species fighting for the right to self-determination?" Vel'Thas felt the political implications spreading out like ripples in water. Humanity was not just threatening military resistance. They were threatening to destabilize the entire Council by exposing the truth about how the system actually worked. "You have 30 days to respond," Webb continued. We are giving the Council 1 month to decide whether it wants peace with an independent humanity or war with us. Choose wisely. Webb provided them with an official document containing humanity's terms, formatted in perfect Council diplomatic language. He also gave them unrestricted access to human defense assessments, not because he wanted to threaten them, but because he wanted the Council to make an informed decision. We are not hiding our capabilities, Webb explained. We want you to understand exactly what conflict would mean. Maybe that will help you choose peace. The journey back to Council space was silent. Velthus spent the time reviewing everything they had learned, preparing his report, and trying to think of any way this situation could end without disaster. When they finally arrived at the Council chambers, Velthus requested an immediate emergency session. Within hours, every major Council representative was assembled. Velthus stood before them and delivered his report. He told them everything. The humans knew about the Council from the beginning. They had analyzed the Galactic Accord and rejected it. They were preparing for war. They had given the Council 30 days to respond to their terms. The chamber erupted into chaos. This is an outrage, War Leader Krath roared. They dare to give the Council an ultimatum? They dare to threaten us? They are not threatening, Velthus said wearily. They are preparing. There is a difference. They hope for peace, but they are ready for war. Then we should give them war, Krath growled. We have 100,000 worlds. They have 40. We will crush them in days, will we? Velthus asked. How many of our member species maintain real military forces? How many have ships designed for actual combat rather than ceremonial displays? How many would actually fight? Enough, Krath insisted. The Kroth alone could defeat them. Perhaps, Velthus acknowledged. But at what cost? Ambassador, please display the human defense assessments. The chamber's displays lit up with the information Webb had provided. Detailed specifications of human weapons, defensive networks, tactical doctrine, everything. A sentient representative processed the data and spoke, its voice a emotionless mathematical calculation. Analysis indicates that military action against humanity would result in victory for Council forces with 97% probability. However, projected casualties range from 100 billion to 300 billion lives. Estimated economic cost would destabilize the Council for 3 to 5 generations. Probability of member species requesting treaty renegotiation following such a conflict, 82%. The chamber fell silent. 100 billion lives. The number was staggering. They cannot possibly inflict such casualties, someone protested. They are so few and we are so many. They do not need to destroy our fleets, the sentient explained. They need only to make occupation impossible. Human colonies are designed for independent operation. There is no centralized infrastructure to capture, no capital world to conquer. Each colony must be taken individually, and each is heavily defended. Furthermore, human tactical doctrine emphasizes guerrilla warfare, resource denial, and what they call scorched earth policies. They would make every world we take a graveyard, and they would make us pay for each one. This is insane, a Calarian representative said. They would sacrifice everything rather than accept peace and prosperity under Council governance? Yes, Velthus said simply. That is exactly what they would do. Because to them, it is not prosperity if it comes at the cost of freedom. High Councillor Zextar had been silent throughout the debate, his ancient mandibles clicking slowly. Now he raised a primary limb for silence. The humans have presented us with a dilemma, Zextar said. If we accept their terms, we acknowledge that species can exist outside the Galactic Accord. This breaks the foundation of our order. If we refuse their terms and leave them alone, we show weakness. Other species may follow their example. If we attack them, we become aggressors against a species that only wants independence. Even if we win militarily, we lose politically. Then what do you suggest, High Counselor? Someone asked. I suggest we consider a fourth option, Zextar replied. What if the humans are right? What if our order needs to change? The chamber erupted again. Accusations of treason and cowardice flew back and forth. Some representatives walked out in protest. Others demanded Zextar's immediate removal from power. But Velthus listened carefully to the old counselor's words, and he thought about everything he had learned on New Hebron. Maybe the humans had not broken the pattern. Maybe they had simply been the first species brave enough to point out that the pattern itself was broken. While the council debated, Humanity was not idle. On the 30th day after Webb's ultimatum, 40 human colonies simultaneously broadcast a message across all council frequencies. Velthus was in the council chambers when the broadcasts came through. Every screen, every display, every communication device in the building suddenly showed the same image: a simple flag with blue and white stripes and a field of stars. Then a voice spoke, calm and clear in every major galactic language. This is the United Colonies of Humanity. We hereby declare our existence as a sovereign interstellar nation. We seek peace with all who approach us as equals. We will defend ourselves against all who approach us as masters. We extend friendship to all species and worlds that wish to trade, communicate, and cooperate with us freely. We will respect the sovereignty of others, and we expect our sovereignty to be respected in turn. This message is being broadcast from 40 worlds simultaneously and will continue until acknowledged. We await the Galactic Council's response. The broadcast repeated. It did not stop. Every human colony transmitted continuously, making sure every ship, every station, every world in council space heard their declaration. They have outmaneuvered us, Velta said quietly to Kress, who stood beside him. By declaring themselves publicly, they have made this a galactic issue, not just a council matter. Every species will hear this. Every species will wonder what the council will do. What will we do? Kress asked. I do not know, Velthus admitted, but we have less than a day to decide. The humans gave us 30 days to respond. Today is day 30. High Counselor Jextar called for another emergency session. Every council representative attended, even those who had walked out before. The chamber was packed with beings from across the galaxy, all waiting to hear what decision would shape the future. Jextar stood at the center of the chamber, his ancient form seeming to carry the weight of 50,000 years of history. The humans have forced us to confront a truth we have long avoided, he said. Our order, our peace, our prosperity, it has all been built on a simple assumption that every species would willingly accept council governance in exchange for the benefits we offer. The humans have challenged that assumption. They want the benefits without the governance. War Leader Krath stood abruptly, his massive armored form towering over the other representatives. High Counselor, with respect, you speak of adaptation when we should speak of strength. The humans have challenged us. If we bow to their demands, we appear weak. Every species in the galaxy will think they can make demands of the Council. And if we attack them, Velthus countered, we prove that the Council maintains order through force, not through the consent of its members. Which message do you think causes more instability? Krath turned his fierce gaze on Velthus. You have become sympathetic to these humans, Ambassador. Perhaps spending time disguised as one of them has clouded your judgment. Perhaps it has cleared my judgment, Velthus replied calmly. I have walked among them. I have read their history. I have seen their cities and talked to their leaders. They are not rebels or criminals. They are simply a species that values freedom above comfort. Is that really so terrible?
Freedom without order is chaos, Krath growled. And order without freedom is tyranny, Velthus responded.
The question is, which does the Council represent? The debate raged for hours. Calculations were run and rerun. Simulations showed various outcomes. Military strategists presented battle plans. Diplomats suggested compromise proposals. Economists analyzed the cost of every option. Through it all, Jextar remained silent, listening to every voice, considering every argument. Finally, as the galactic day drew to a close, the ancient counselor spoke again. I call for a vote, he said, but not on whether to accept the human terms. That is too simple. Instead, I propose we vote on something more fundamental. I propose we create a new type of relationship with the humans, one that we can extend to other species in the future. We will call it the Covenant of Sovereign States. The chamber fell silent, everyone listening intently. Under this covenant, Jextar continued, species would maintain full sovereignty over their own affairs. They would govern themselves, develop their own technologies, expand at their own pace, and maintain their own military forces. The Council would not have authority over them. Instead, the Council would serve as a forum for cooperation between truly independent nations. Trade agreements, scientific collaboration, cultural exchange, mutual defense treaties, all would be voluntary arrangements between equals. That would mean rewriting 50,000 years of galactic order, someone protested. Yes, Jextar agreed. It would. But consider the alternative. We can either change our system now on our terms, or we can wait for it to collapse under the weight of its own contradictions. The humans have exposed a fundamental flaw in how we operate. We can punish them for pointing it out, or we can thank them for showing us how to improve. Velthus felt hope stirring in his chest for the first time in days. This could work. This could actually prevent war while also addressing the legitimate concerns that humanity had raised. But what about the species already in the Council? Asked a representative. What about the Galactic Accord they have already signed? They would have a choice, Jextar replied. They could remain under the current accord, or they could request renegotiation and join the new covenant. It would be voluntary. No species would be forced to change their relationship with the Council. War Leader Krath was quiet for a long time. Finally he spoke, his voice thoughtful rather than angry. This is a radical change. It could destabilize everything we have built. It could, Jextar acknowledged. Or it could strengthen us by making our unity genuine rather than mandatory. The Kroth have always valued strength. Which is stronger? An empire held together by force or an alliance held together by mutual respect and shared interests? Krath considered this. You make a valid point, High Counselor. An alliance of equals might indeed be stronger than subjects bound by treaty. The vote was called. It was not unanimous. Nearly a third of the council voted against the proposal, fearing the chaos that change might bring. But the majority voted in favor, recognizing that adaptation was preferable to stagnation or war. Velthus was chosen to deliver the council's response to humanity. He traveled to New Hebron aboard the Harmonious Greeting, the same ship that had attempted first contact months before. But this time he was not ignored. Human ships met him at the edge of their space. They did not form a defensive barrier. Instead, they sent an escort, guiding him to New Hebron with full honors. Governor Webb met him at the landing pad, accompanied by several other high-ranking human officials. For the first time, Velthus stood before humans as himself, not disguised, not hiding his true form. Ambassador Velthus, Webb said, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting. Welcome to New Hebron. Velthus took the offered hand, noting the strength in Webb's grip. Governor Webb, I bring a message from the Galactic Council. They moved to a formal meeting room where Velthus presented the Council's proposal. He explained the covenant of sovereign states, the voluntary nature of the relationship, the equality between the Council and humanity. Webb listened carefully, occasionally asking questions for clarification. When Velthus finished, Webb was quiet for a long moment. This is not what we expected, Webb finally said. We thought you would either accept our terms grudgingly or you would attack. We did not expect you to propose something even better than what we asked for. The Council is capable of wisdom, Velthus said with a slight smile. It simply takes us longer to reach it than it should. There is one problem, Webb said. Your proposal extends this covenant to other species. What if the human example causes other council members to request renegotiation? What if your entire system collapses? Then perhaps it deserved to collapse, Velthus replied. Governor, I have spent 400 years helping species join the council. I always believed I was helping them find peace and prosperity. The humans made me question whether I was actually helping them surrender their freedom. If other species want to renegotiate their relationship with the Council, maybe that is not a crisis. Maybe that is an opportunity for the galaxy to build something better. Webb smiled. I think we can work with you, Ambassador. The formal acceptance ceremony took place 3 weeks later. Representatives from the Council and the United Colonies of Humanity met on neutral ground, a space station built specifically for the occasion. The Covenant of Sovereign States was signed by both parties in a ceremony broadcast across the entire galaxy. Velthus watched as Governor Webb, representing humanity, and High Counselor Jextar, representing the Council, signed the historic document. It was the first time in 50,000 years that a species had joined the galactic community without signing the Galactic Accord, but the real changes came in the months that followed. Within 6 weeks of humanity's acceptance, 3 council species formally requested renegotiation of their treaties. Within 3 months, 10 more had made similar requests. Within a year, nearly a quarter of all council members were discussing whether to remain under the old accord or transition to the new covenant. Some council members saw this as a disaster, the collapse of order that they had feared. But others, like Velthus, saw it as an evolution that was long overdue. The galaxy was changing. The rigid hierarchy that had maintained stability for millennia was giving way to something more flexible and dynamic. It was chaotic and uncertain, but it was also vital and alive in a way the old order had not been for thousands of years. Velthus found himself busier than ever, helping species navigate the transition from the old system to the new one. It was challenging work, but it was also deeply satisfying. For the first time in centuries, he felt like he was helping species grow, rather than managing them. 1 year after the signing of the covenant, Velthus returned to New Hebron. The city had grown significantly, with new towers reaching toward the sky and new districts spreading across the landscape. Humanity was expanding, innovating and thriving in ways they never could have under the old Galactic Accord. Governor Webb met him at the landing pad again, and they walked through the city together, talking about the changes that had swept across the galaxy. "You know," Webb said as they watched humans and aliens from a dozen species moving freely through the streets, "when we first refused contact with the Council, we thought we might be starting a war. We never imagined we might be starting a revolution instead." "Not a revolution," Velthus corrected gently. "An evolution. Revolutions are violent and destructive. What you started was a conversation about what the galaxy could become. Has it been worth the chaos?" Webb asked. Velthus thought about the question carefully. The past year had indeed been chaotic. There had been disputes, conflicts, and uncertainties as the galaxy adjusted to new realities. Some species struggled with the transition. Some relationships became strained. The Council had lost some of its centralized power and authority, but he also thought about the innovation he had witnessed. The new alliances being formed, the genuine friendships developing between species that previously had only formal diplomatic relations. He thought about member species that were rediscovering their own cultural identities after centuries of conformity. He thought about the energy and enthusiasm that came from genuine cooperation rather than mandatory compliance.